There's talk of NAM captures coming to the next generation of Fractal units, but what if I told you that you can use them with your FM3, FM9 and AXFX right now? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how. But first, let's take a listen. Howdy everybody, welcome back to my channel and my Fractal explorations. Today I'm going to show you how you can use NAM captures with your existing Fractal units. And you're probably scratching your head and wondering, how did you do this, Jay? Well, let me show you on my desk. Yep. Now obviously NAM captures are not integrated into the Fractal units right now, but we can use other pedals to loop into the Fractal and use them for our NAM captures, or even other types of capture units like the TONEX unit or the Neural DSP, Nano Cortex or something like that. I've used the Vailton GP50 because I have it and I can load up my NAM captures onto there, and I have actually captured a lot of my amps, which you can see on my rack down here. I'll show you a picture so that I could show you how you can integrate that into your workflow if you wanted to use your own amp captures with the Fractal units. All right, let's dive right in, and firstly I'll show you how I hooked up the pedal to my Fractal FM3. Setting up an effects loop in the FM3 is relatively straightforward. So what you do is you come out of output number 2, and I have this cable coming out of output number 2, and I'm going into the input of the Vailton GP50. Then from the outputs of the Vailton GP50, I go back into the input of the FM3. So I'm using both of the outputs on the GP50 into both of the input number 2s of the FM3. Now the reason I do this is because if I use just one or the other, then the signal is either panned left or right. Now you can get around this by just using a mono signal in your signal chain, but I like to use stereo effects when I use my FM3 and set up my patches. So I wanted to use this in stereo, hence I need both of the inputs going into here. Otherwise it's either panned to the left or the right. And I need it in the middle. Alrighty, let's head over to FM3 and I'll show you how I set up my signal chain. Over here in my FM3, you can see my signal chain. So I'm coming into my FM3, then I have a drive pedal, which is switched off right now. Then I'm going into the effects loop. So I'm coming out of output 2, then I'm looping it back into input number 2. The compressor here is actually just a dynamic processor. Then I'm using the Fractal Dynacabs for my cab sound. Then I have a delay and reverb going on, and then straight to output number 1. So this is where the magic is happening. Output 2 to input 2. This is where the Vailton GP50 is hooked in and where my NAM profiles are coming in. And I have my NAM profiles all loaded up onto the unit, and I can control those NAM captures via the app on my phone, which hooks straight into the GP50, so it makes it kind of convenient to actually control everything. So here's the sound first of all. That's a cool sound, and that is a capture of my actual EVH5153 6L6 amplifier, which is right down there. And it's so cool that I can use that sound with my Fractal units with all of the effects available and the Dynacabs and everything that is in the Fractalverse. And as you can see in FM3 Edit, it is actually quite simple. I'm basically just replacing the amp block with this loop here and going out to my external unit. If I turn off the delay and reverb, you can hear my actual amp capture. So this is what my 5153 red channel sounds like. Which is very, very cool. And if I want to change over amps, then I pick up my phone and I go to the app and let's choose another one. Now I have my Soldano in here as well. So I'm going to pick my SLO30 on the overdrive channel and let's see how that sounds now. So this is my SLO30 sound. Which is awesome. Now, if I want to add effects, then I can easily do it within the Fractal FM3 edit now. And I have all of that at my disposal. And I decided to use the Dynacabs for this because I love the sound of the Dynacabs, and I have these dialed in to my perfect settings, and these are the cabs that I use on pretty much every preset that I create. But you can use your impulse responses if you want to use them with your actual amp captures. If you have your own cabs that you've actually made impulse responses of, you can do that within this ecosystem as well. Now, let's say you want to use both the amp captures and the Fractal amp models as well. You can do that as well. So I've created a second patch where I actually have a parallel chain going on here. So after the drive pedal, which I'll switch off for the time being, I actually split off into the loop section up here, and I actually have an amp here, and I've got a filter here. Now all the filter is doing is basically putting the level down to 0, turning off the sound of the amp. Otherwise, some of the signal would actually seep through when you have a dual signal chain like this. So this is actually switched off at the moment. You can see the level is at -80, so it's basically turned off. And you can see that the input on the loop is actually switched on at the moment. And I have a second scene where I've switched off the input to, and I switch off the filter as well. And what this does is it switches off the loop and it switches off the filter, which allows the sound of the amp to go through to the cab. So best of both worlds. So through the GP50, I've dialed in another one of my tones, which is my 5153, but the blue channel this time. So let's take a listen to that. We're going to be hearing the signal coming into the loop here. Fabulous. I've got my amp capture going on there. When I go to scene number 2 here, you'll see that both of these are switched off. And what this is doing is it's switching off the return signal from the GP50s. So now the signal from the GP50 is not coming into the signal chain of the Fractal. And I have taken off the mute from the amp within the Fractal. And I've basically dialed in a Dizzy V4 Silver channel number 4 here, which is basically a diesel VH4. So I wanted to experiment with this sound. So now we're going to hear the sound of the diesel amp. Best of both worlds there. I can use all of the 247 odd amps which are in the FM3, but I can also use my actual amp captures. That's mind-blowing for me. I love doing that. And they are different sounds. If I go over to my capture again, and then switch over to the amp in the Fractal, I could even do different amps. The other thing that I can do is unmute this and actually have both amps going at the same time. Which is the sound of a VH4 plus my 5150 as well. And that's pretty cool, right? So there you go. That's how you do it. That's a pretty cool way to bring your NAMM captures into the Fractalverse, right? We don't have to wait for the next generation if we don't want to. There are always ways to kind of figure these things out, and I kind of like to do that. I always have done it, and this was something which has been in my mind for a while, and I wanted to share it with all of you guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. If this video was helpful, then please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification, because I will have more videos coming up, and I have a full playlist of all of my Fractal videos with lots of tips and tricks which you can check out also. Also, please do give it a like and share it with your friends as well, because they can benefit from it as well, I am sure. And if you would like to support the channel, all of the links are in the video description below to my Patreon and also my Gumroad page, where you can find my Fractal presets and preset packs as well. There are some free ones on there as well, which you can grab and experiment with. Enjoy experimenting with this. It is such a cool way of getting new sounds to work with your Fractal units. Alrighty folks, let's take a listen to that full track which I recorded with captures of my actual amps, but with my Fractal as well. Still gives me shivers. Anyways, have an amazing day, and I'll see you soon with another one. Bye for now.